No update. Just felt a little something in her groin, so we'll get it evaluated and see what happens from there.
The WNBA is standing on the edge of a storm that could shake the entire foundation of women's basketball. And if the whispers coming from inside locker rooms and front offices are even partially true, the league could be heading toward a crisis no one is prepared to handle. Because what's being discussed behind closed doors isn't just frustration, rivalry, or hard feelings between players. It's something far more explosive. We are talking about the possibility of a player revolt that could derail the most commercially successful moment the league has ever experienced. According to circulating rumors and alleged insider conversations, a growing group of veteran players has reached a breaking point with the sudden transformation of the league's spotlight around one name, Caitlin Clark. What started as excitement around a generational rookie has reportedly evolved into tension, resentment, and a sense among some players that the balance inside the league has been fundamentally altered. In their view, the attention, media narratives, and marketing push surrounding Clark has created an environment where the contributions of longtime stars are being overshadowed almost overnight. Publicly, league officials and commentators frame this moment as a natural stage of growth. More viewers, more headlines, and more debate are supposed to be signs that women's basketball is finally breaking through into the mainstream. But behind the scenes, insiders claim the mood inside certain locker rooms tells a very different story. Instead of celebration, there are whispers of frustration over perceived favoritism, concerns about fan behavior that has spilled into online harassment, and a growing belief that the league's identity is being reshaped too quickly. If those frustrations continue to build, the consequences could be dramatic. A strike, boycott, or coordinated protest involving Clark's games would not simply be another controversy for the sports cycle. It could trigger a reputational crisis for the entire league and threaten the fragile momentum women's basketball has spent decades trying to build. To understand why tensions have escalated this far, you have to look back to the moment Clark announced she was entering the professional stage. Because for many veterans, that moment didn't just signal the arrival of a superstar. It signaled the beginning of a power struggle over the future direction of the league itself. The tension inside the WNBA didn't appear overnight. It began quietly, almost invisibly, as murmurs among players who felt something fundamental inside the league had shifted. Those murmurs started to grow louder when alleged screenshots and private conversations began circulating in closed online forums connected to the league's player community. According to those leaks, some veterans were venting about what they believed was a sudden change in how the league handled safety, travel, and security. For years, many of the league's biggest names had accepted difficult travel conditions as part of the job. Players like Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, and Aya Wilson spent large portions of their careers flying commercial, navigating delays, cramped seating, and tight travel schedules that would test even the most resilient athletes. They had pushed for improvements for years, especially when it came to charter flights that could protect player health and reduce the physical toll of cross-country travel. For most of that time, the answer from the league office was consistent. The cost was too high. The financial structure of the league simply couldn't support that level of travel upgrade. At least, that's what players were told repeatedly. Then the league entered a new era with the arrival of Caitlin Clark. Almost immediately, the conversation around security and logistics began to change. Her massive college following translated into sold-out arenas, massive television ratings, and crowds unlike anything the league had seen before. With that surge in attention came legitimate security concerns as larger audiences packed into venues and attention from national media intensified. Suddenly, the league found itself announcing expanded charter flight programs designed to protect players and manage the new logistical reality created by record-breaking crowds. On paper, the decision benefited every team in the league. But inside some locker rooms, the reaction was far from celebratory. According to rumored conversations among players, many veterans felt the change sent a message that their own safety concerns had not been taken seriously until the arrival of a marketable superstar. To them, the sudden shift wasn't just about logistics. It symbolized a deeper issue about whose presence truly mattered in the league's long history. The frustration didn't stop with travel. If anything, that was only the beginning, because once players started comparing the economic realities surrounding Clark's arrival, the numbers only deepened the divide. Before she ever stepped onto a professional court, Clark secured a massive endorsement partnership with Nike reportedly worth tens of millions of dollars. It instantly made her one of the most commercially valuable athletes associated with the league. For longtime players who had spent years building the league's credibility, the optics were difficult to ignore. Athletes who had won championships, MVP awards, and defensive player honors had waited years to receive signature deals or major endorsement recognition. Now a rookie was entering the league with a marketing platform larger than many veterans had built across an entire decade. That reality created an uncomfortable contrast. Many WNBA players still supplement their income by playing overseas during the off-season in countries like Turkey, China, or Russia. Those additional seasons are physically demanding but often necessary to maintain financial stability. Meanwhile, Clark's endorsement success suggested that the economic ceiling of women's basketball might be much higher than anyone previously believed. The resentment wasn't necessarily directed at Clark personally, at least according to the leaked discussions. Instead, some players appeared frustrated with a system they believed rewarded marketability faster than merit. That tension spilled onto the court in subtle ways that cameras began to capture game after game. Hard fouls, heated exchanges, moments where Clark was knocked down and the reaction from opposing players felt noticeably colder than usual. One moment in particular ignited a firestorm across sports media. During a heated matchup, Chendi Carter delivered a controversial hip check that sent Clark to the floor. Within hours, the clip spread across social media, sparking intense debate about whether the play crossed the line. The media reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Commentators, analysts, and fans rushed to take sides, turning a single foul into a national sports controversy. But according to rumors circulating among players, the situation looked very different from inside the league. Some veterans reportedly viewed the moment as part of the long-standing tradition of rookie initiation that exists in nearly every professional sport. Hard defense, physical play, and a willingness to test newcomers have historically been ways veterans establish hierarchy inside a league. What shocked many players was not the foul itself but the reaction that followed. Carter became the target of a wave of criticism and online harassment, with some commentators portraying the incident as evidence of hostility toward Clark specifically inside locker rooms. That narrative allegedly created another layer of tension. Players began questioning whether defending Clark aggressively would automatically turn them into villains in the eyes of the media and fans. That concern became even more serious as social media reactions escalated. Players reported receiving thousands of hostile messages whenever they were involved in physical plays against Clark. In the age of viral clips and non-stop commentary, a single highlight could trigger days of online backlash. The result was a strange new reality for many athletes. Playing defense against one player suddenly carried reputational consequences that extended far beyond the court. Every foul, every hard screen, every competitive moment risked becoming the next viral controversy, and according to insiders, that growing pressure helped push the conversation inside the league towards something more dramatic, because if players felt the environment had become hostile and unbalanced, they began asking a simple question. What leverage did they actually have to change it? The answer, at least theoretically, was the same one athletes have used across professional sports for decades. Collective action. If enough players decided that the situation had become unacceptable, the threat of refusing to participate, even temporarily, could force the league to address their concerns. It was a nuclear option, but one that some insiders claimed had begun appearing in private conversations. At that point, the issue stopped being just about a rookie superstar or a controversial foul. It became a broader struggle over respect, recognition, and control over the future of the league itself. If the tensions inside the WNBA had stayed limited to travel complaints and endorsement envy, the situation might have cooled down over time. Professional athletes are used to competitive jealousy. But according to insiders and circulating rumors, the conflict quickly evolved into something much deeper once the media narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark began to dominate the conversation around the entire league. Suddenly every highlight, every hard foul, and every post-game quote was being dissected on national television. The debate wasn't just about basketball anymore. It became a full-scale cultural discussion about popularity, race, and the direction of women's sports. And once that discussion spilled beyond sports media into mainstream political commentary, many players reportedly felt the situation was spiraling out of their control. Television personalities started framing the tension as jealousy. Analysts on major sports shows suggested that veteran players simply couldn't accept that Clark had become the face of the league almost overnight. Comments like that quickly caught the attention of players who believed the conversation ignored years of work that had built the league long before Clark arrived. Figures such as Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith discussed the controversy repeatedly, often framing the situation as a clash between a generational superstar and a group of resentful veterans. While those debates generated massive viewership, insiders claimed the commentary only deepened the frustration inside locker rooms. Players reportedly began feeling that the narrative had already been written for them. If they defended Clark aggressively, they were labeled bullies. If they spoke critically about the attention surrounding her, they were portrayed as bitter. And if they tried to ignore the controversy altogether, the media filled the silence with speculation. That sense of being boxed into a narrative started fueling a larger conversation about respect and identity inside the league. Because for decades, the WNBA had been built largely by black women who used the platform not only to play basketball but to advocate for social justice issues. Many players took pride in that legacy and viewed it as a core part of the league's culture. Over the years, WNBA players had organized protests, spoken out about police violence, and used their visibility to highlight cases such as Breonna Taylor. They had also rallied around players like Brittany Griner during her detention overseas, bringing international attention to her situation. Now, according to leaked discussions, some players feared that the sudden explosion of attention surrounding Clark was attracting a new fan base that did not necessarily understand or respect the league's history and culture. The concern wasn't simply about popularity. It was about the tone of the conversation that followed that popularity. Some players reportedly felt that social media debates had started painting a simplistic hero versus villain storyline, where Clark was cast as the face of progress and anyone challenging her on the court was framed as antagonistic. That perception became even stronger once other young stars entered the spotlight. One of the most prominent examples was Angel Reese. Reese arrived in the league with her own massive following and a personality that made her instantly recognizable. But in many media narratives, she was often positioned as Clark's rival in a way that reduced her achievements to a supporting role in Clark's story. Players inside the league reportedly rejected that framing entirely. To them, Reese wasn't a villain or a foil. She was another talented rookie carving out her own path in professional basketball. Yet every interaction between the two players became headline material, fueling a rivalry narrative that many athletes believed exaggerated the real situation. Those perceptions were further complicated by disciplinary decisions and media reactions following emotional post-game moments. When Reese faced criticism after declining to speak with reporters following a difficult loss, some players viewed the backlash as another example of the double standard they believed existed in the coverage surrounding the league. In private conversations, the alleged sentiment was growing clearer. Many players felt that the media environment had become skewed toward protecting the league's newest superstar while scrutinizing everyone else far more aggressively. That growing frustration reached another turning point when the selection committee for United States women's national basketball team finalized its roster for the upcoming 2024 Summer Olympics. When Clark's name was absent from the roster, the reaction from fans was immediate and intense. Social media exploded with criticism of the decision, with some fans arguing that leaving one of the sport's most popular figures off the Olympic team was a missed opportunity for global exposure. But according to rumors circulating inside the league, the reasoning behind the decision may have been far more complicated than fans realized. Some insiders speculated that veteran players on the national team preferred maintaining an established roster dynamic rather than introducing the enormous media spotlight that would follow Clark to Paris. Whether those rumors were accurate or not, the perception that veterans still held influence over major decisions only intensified the divide between different factions of fans. Clark's supporters saw the decision as evidence of resistance to change, while others viewed it as a defense of merit and experience. Inside the league, the ripple effects were impossible to ignore. Every game between Clark's team and established stars carried an extra layer of tension. Hard fouls were scrutinized. Bench reactions were analyzed frame by frame. Even small moments of body language began fueling new speculation about whether the league was experiencing a genuine internal conflict. Meanwhile, the league office attempted to maintain stability. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert emphasized growth, opportunity, and unity whenever addressing the media. From an official standpoint, the league was experiencing its most successful moment ever. Attendance was rising, television ratings were climbing, and corporate sponsors were paying closer attention than they had in years, but growth also brings pressure. And according to insiders, the speed of that growth may have outpaced the league's ability to manage the cultural and financial expectations surrounding it. Players wanted higher salaries, improved travel conditions, and a larger share of the revenue generated by the sudden surge in popularity. At the same time, the league was trying to balance the excitement surrounding a new superstar with the need to maintain respect for the veterans who had carried the league through decades of slower progress. That balancing act is where the rumored strike conversations began to gain traction, because if players truly believed their voices were being ignored while the league focused on maximizing a single narrative, they possessed one powerful form of leverage: their willingness to play. Without the full roster of elite athletes who make the WNBA competitive, the league's product would fundamentally change. A basketball game requires more than one superstar. It requires opponents, defenders, teammates, and rivals capable of creating the drama that fans tune in to watch. According to the circulating rumors, that reality has quietly become the centerpiece of the players' leverage. Not necessarily an immediate strike, but the knowledge that collective action remains an option if the balance of respect inside the league continues to erode. For now, those conversations remain whispers rather than official declarations. But the tension they represent is visible in subtle ways every time the cameras roll. The sideline interactions, the heated exchanges, the guarded answers during press conferences. They all hint at a deeper story unfolding beneath the surface, because what is happening inside the WNBA right now isn't just a rivalry between players or a debate about one superstar's impact. It is a complicated negotiation over identity, power, and the future of women's professional basketball, and until that negotiation finds some kind of resolution, the possibility of a larger confrontation will continue hanging over the league like a storm waiting to break. As this situation continues to unfold, the most important thing to watch may not be the final score, but everything happening around it. Watch the benches. Watch the body language between players. Pay attention to who celebrates together and who keeps their distance. Listen carefully to the tone in post-game interviews and the words that players choose, and the ones they carefully avoid. Because in a league like the WNBA, where players have spent decades fighting for visibility, respect, and stability, moments like this are rarely just about basketball. The rumors of a possible player revolt might sound dramatic to outsiders, but history shows that these athletes are not strangers to standing up for what they believe the league should represent. For many veterans, this moment feels like a crossroads. They believe they are defending the culture and identity that existed long before the arrival of a superstar like Caitlin Clark suddenly turned the spotlight brighter than ever before. No one knows exactly how this tension will resolve. Maybe it ends quietly behind closed doors with new agreements, stronger communication, and a renewed sense of unity. Or maybe the conflict grows louder until it forces a public showdown that reshapes the direction of the league entirely. But one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. The calm surface that once defined the locker room atmosphere is beginning to crack, and the conversations happening behind those doors are no longer staying hidden. Every rumor, every leaked discussion, every heated moment on the court suggests that the coming months could be some of the most defining in the history of women's professional basketball. Veteran players appear to be drawing a clear line about what they expect from the future of the league, while Clark's unprecedented popularity continues pulling the sport into uncharted territory. If that tension ever reaches a breaking point, the consequences would extend far beyond a single season. It would ignite debates about the economics of women's sports, the influence of media narratives, and the complicated relationship between popularity, race, and representation in American athletics. The players understand how high the stakes are, which is exactly why the possibility of drastic action keeps surfacing in whispered conversations. At the heart of it all is a simple but powerful question. Who truly controls the future of the league, the athletes who built it, or the unstoppable momentum of a new era? For now, the ball is still bouncing and the games are still being played. But if that ever changes, the silence that follows could say more than any highlight ever will. Because what we are witnessing right now may only be the opening moments of a much larger battle for the soul of the sport.